Good morning. I want to welcome everyone this morning to the third meeting of the Budget Review Subcommittee for Transportation. We don't quite have a quorum yet, so we cannot approve our minutes from the last meeting. But I would love to call us to order this morning, and I want to thank all of you all for being here. I start my meetings out by saying I want people to have a smile on their face. These meetings really are about sharing information and learning what, especially for those in the audience who are watching, learning what those elected officials and those appointed officials that you're putting your trust in are doing, and not running around with the rumors that you often hear, which are highly inaccurate. So with that being said, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senator Armstrong, Senator Higdon, Representative Branscombe, Representative Bridges, Representative Huff, Representative Imes,
Here.
Representative Smith, Representative Tackett Lafferty,
Here.
Senator Bledsoe, Senator McDaniel, Representative Blanton, Representative Bowling, Representative Bray, Representative Petrie, Co-Chair Upchurch, Chair Douglas.
Present. Thank you so very much, Madam Clerk. I say a lot of things. I've been told I say things that a lot of people don't want to say, but I want to apologize. I do want to apologize to you all for us not quite having a quorum yet. You should get what you pay for, and it is our responsibility to be here. I'm here. You guys are here. It is our responsibility to be here, and we'll make sure that we address that a little bit more. With that being said, we will start the schedule. I think Road Fund was up first. If the presenters would please come to the table, and I always ask that you pull the microphones closer to you. They are clean, and then press the button so that the green light is on. And if you would, just please introduce yourselves for the record.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our pleasure to be here this morning from the Transportation Cabinet. I'm Mike Hancock, the Deputy Secretary for the Cabinet. And I'm here today with Sean McKiernan, who is our Budget Director for the Cabinet. His title's a little more robust than that, but we call him the Budget Director. And then I'm with Ron Rigney also, and Ron is our Director of the Division of Program Management and has a lot of involvement with our highway plan and a number of other things that your staff use him a lot for. So that's all good. I did want to say before we get started this morning that Secretary Gray sends his regrets for not being able to be here with everyone today. He was at a previous meeting here, but he's headed to Lexington to speak to a room full of uniformed officers, and it's our occupant protection program, and he is very serious about safety across the state, and this was something that he felt he absolutely needed to do, so I'm here pinch hitting today.
Well, I appreciate you being here, and please let him know that he was missed today. We do appreciate all of his contributions. If you would, please raise your right hands.
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, proceed in whatever order you wish.
All right, we'll turn it over to Sean.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Sean McKiernan. I'm Executive Director of Budget and Fiscal Management at the Transportation Cabinet. I have the presentation pulled up on this computer, but it is not showing on the screen. Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm here today to give a brief update on the road fund for fiscal year 2024-25, which ended on June 30th, 2025. Of course, the road fund is very important to the Transportation Cabinet as it makes up a little over 50% of our budget, with federal funds being the next largest component. In FY25, 45% of road fund revenue came from motor fuels taxes, 38% from motor vehicle usage, and motor vehicle license taxes made up 6%, weight distance 5%, motor vehicle operators 2%, investment income 1%, and other sources 3%. On this slide, we're looking at actual revenues compared to the enacted budget revenue estimates. As you can see, the motor fuels revenue came in 3.5% below the estimate, and that's largely due to a drop in the rate of 2.3 cents, which was felt in the last 3 quarters of the year. Motor vehicle usage tax revenues set an all-time high for the 5th consecutive year with revenues of $719.5 million. Collections in this account were steady throughout the year, with growth rates ranging from 3.1% to 9.8%. Revenues for the year were stronger than anticipated and exceeded the official forecast by $69.4 million. Other receipts were altogether just $400,000 short of the $308 million estimate. The bottom line is that road fund revenue was $38.5 million greater than the enacted estimate, or 2.1% more than estimated. Road fund receipts declined at the same rate in the 4th quarter as they did for the full year. The 0.6 drop followed growth rates of 3.6%, minus 3.3%, and minus 2.2% in the preceding 3 quarters. For the year, total collections were $1.86 billion, a decrease of $11 million compared to FY24 totals. Motor fuels tax revenue registered the largest difference between the 2 years, as collections were $69 million less than in the prior year, a drop of 7.6%. Some of that decline was made up by an increase in motor vehicle usage tax receipts, which brought in $48.5 million more than in FY25. Of the remaining major accounts, annual changes were relatively small and taken together were about $9.5 million more than what was received in the prior year. Looking ahead, road fund revenues are forecasted to decline over the first 3 quarters of FY26. Motor fuel taxes will account for the majority of the drop due to the decline in the tax rate on motor fuels. In addition to the fuels taxes, motor vehicle usage, the weight distance tax, income on investments, and other receipts are also forecasted to decline. The remaining accounts are expected to increase only moderately, with growth rates for the 2 remaining accounts to be in the 2 to 5% range. Motor fuels tax receipts are forecasted to decline 5.8% in the first 9 months of FY26 due to that 1.4 cent per gallon drop in the tax rate. Of course, the decline in the tax rate is due to the average wholesale price of gasoline going down. The gasoline excise tax is calculated annually as 9% of the average wholesale price of gas plus 5 cents plus 1.4 cents for the Underground Petroleum Storage Tank Environmental Assurance Fund. The portion of the tax determined by the average wholesale price of gas will decrease from 21.4 cents per gallon down to 20.0 cents per gallon, which will drop the total taxes and fees on gasoline at the pump from 27.8 cents per gallon to 26.4 cents per gallon. Motor vehicle usage tax revenues are forecasted to decrease 2.7% over the first 3 quarters of FY26, after increasing 7.2% in FY25. Collections in this account have been very strong for the last several years, with collections reaching all-time highs in each of the 5 last years. Growth in motor vehicle license fees is expected to be 5.1% in the first 3 quarters of FY26, after falling 1.9% in FY25. Weight distance taxes are forecasted to continue their slow decline. Collections in FY25 fell 0.6%, and receipts through the first 9 months of FY26 are expected to decline 1.2%. Motor vehicle operators license, driver's license taxes are forecasted to rise 2.7%, and investment income collections are projected to be $3.6 million. I'm happy to report that there is a road fund surplus for FY25. The revenue excess that we looked at earlier, $38.5 million, is the biggest component of the road fund surplus. We also had a reduction of spending in revenue sharing because motor fuel tax revenue receipts were lower than forecasted. And while that means less money for counties and cities, that does have an effect of adding $12.8 million to the surplus. Other net spending coming in below budget added $88.3 million to the surplus, and there were some closed capital projects that also added $2 million to the surplus. The total for the road fund surplus account is $61.6 million. As a reminder, the 2024-26 budget bill requires that monies in the road fund surplus account be appropriated to state construction. At this point, I'm happy to take any questions that the committee might have.
Senator Higdon has a question.
Thank you, Sean. Can you go back to, you skipped over one with some bar graphs. I'm slow. I like to see graphs. It's easy to understand. Would you explain that one?
I'd be happy to. This is the road fund revenue growth by quarter. And so you see in the first quarter, there was an increase over the last fiscal year's first quarter of 3.6%. And that's an indication that the reduction in the rate for motor fuels taxes hadn't fully been felt by the cabinet. And so you'll see that decrease in the second quarter and the third quarter and the fourth quarter. For the year, the reduction was 0.6%, but it did vary by quarter. That first quarter showing an increase.
You probably think this is a broken record for those, and I know people watch because I got calls about some of the comments that we all made on Monday. But just for the record, we have the same user fee on gas. Our formula is producing the same money for the road fund as it did in 2011. So by comparison, to tell you, but on the vehicle usage, motor vehicle usage, it's way up, and the reason for that is vehicles have gone up over the years, and so what we collect has gone up, and thankfully, that's what kept the fund as strong as it has been. But motor fuels is like you said, from last year it's down 7.6%, where vehicle usage was up 7.2 cents, 7.2%. So there's our formula is broken. It's not working. Like I said. Especially when you look at, compare it to 2011, it was 25.9 cents, 25.9, it's 26.1 now. So we lost 4 cents a gallon since June the 30th of last year, 4.1 cents, I think it is. So it's 125 million that we're not getting to the road fund that we did get. The big loser on that, the big loser is cities, counties, and rural and secondary, because it goes into the formula FIS, and the other went to the other half goes to construction and funding of the administration, which we get some federal dollars. We get about $1 billion there. So if you see orange barrels, most of that's federal dollars, but when people wonder why their rural and secondary roads are not being paved. We got a report from the Commissioner Lewis the other day. We were $350 million worth of roads that are 15 years. They haven't been paid for 15 years or longer. And as Chairman Upchurch will tell you, in this last budget, we had I think $125 million worth of requests for 9s and 10s from the cities and counties. We only funded 20 million of that. So there's quite a backlog, and that's the real loser is our cities, counties, and rural and secondary roads. With the formula that we have, it's not working. It's kind of odd how our formula works. As gas goes up, our revenue goes up. So if gas is $4 a gallon, the fee on that is higher. But as gas gets lower, then the fee goes down. Really ought to be the other way around. As gas goes up, we get less, and as it goes down, we get more. So the consumer, it's a little easier for them. But anyway, that's just wanted to make that point so people understand that our formula is not working. It just doesn't work anymore with the fuel prices the way they are. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for enduring that long talk about the issues we're having with our current formula. And like I said, I know there's some people watching that maybe needed that information. So and some people on the committee that probably are interested in knowing why the things are the way they are. Any
Thank you,
comments?
Senator Higdon. We needed, we really did need that that bit of education. Again, at least in my committees, that's what I'm going to stress. That's why we're here. Often we come to these committee meetings and there's this idea that we're supposed to be talking about things that people are going to like. That's not our job. Our job is to do the best job that we can do for the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky to improve their living space. That's our job. And sometimes there are going to be those who are going to be happy with it, and still there are going to be times when there are those who are not going to be as satisfied. But the numbers really are the numbers. And Senator Higdon, as he just pointed out, we've got our work cut out for us with the variabilities that are going on, at least within this transportation space, and how we may have to revisit how that formula is calculated. And we will certainly be welcoming the input from all those who have input to give. Are there any other questions here? Well, thank you so very much, gentlemen, for the presentation. While they're leaving, we do have a quorum, and so we can. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes from our July 15 meeting. Do I have a motion from the co-chair? Second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have second. I don't know, did we call the roll? Do we have to call the roll? We don't have to call the roll, no. Okay. Okay. With a voice vote, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay. The minutes have been approved. Moving forward, high growth counties projects. We have two people at the table. If you would, again, I want to make sure that the green light's on so we can hear you. Introduce yourself for the crowd, please.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Jason Sawala, Deputy State Highway Engineer for the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
Thank you, Jason. Just please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. We're going to move along this morning, and the floor is yours.
Very good. And good morning again. And thank you to the chairman for the opportunity to update the committee on the letting of the high growth county projects as identified within the 2024 highway plan. And those are the projects that were identified to be implemented with general fund dollars as passed through the General Assembly during the 2024 session. And so since the beginning of the biennium, KYTC has worked diligently to prioritize these projects for delivery within the biennium, and we've made a lot of progress. I'd like to thank the KYTC staff because there's a lot of folks that work really hard not only on this portfolio of projects, but to deliver all of the different transportation projects that are within the road plan. Our communities, our industry partners, the consultants and contractors working to deliver these projects. To date, $106 million in HGC authorizations have been made for phases identified within the highway plan with HGC funds. 9 projects have construction funds authorized and have either been let to contract, awarded as design build, or a memorandum of agreement executed with a local government for delivery of those projects. 12 additional projects are currently scheduled to be let between now and the end of this calendar year, so the end of 2025, with estimated construction phase costs in excess of $250 million that those projects represent. And one additional project will be advertised and we believe awarded via alternative delivery. We anticipate additional projects being let to construction prior to the end of the biennium between January and June 30th of 2026. as well, and we anticipate authorizing the entirety of the $450 million that was appropriated by the General Assembly.
That was fast. Appreciate the information. Do I have any questions from anyone on the committee? Again, Senator Higdon.
Jason, thank you for that update. And that was the first time that in modern history that the General Assembly has devoted general fund dollars to catch up on construction, especially in the high growth areas. And I think it's a very good plan. And I know you all are working to, let me say you're under a lot of pressure to get these things out to market before we start our next budget, before it goes into place, because we'd hate to appropriate more money when the previous money hadn't been spent. So I know you're working on that, and just know that we're very anxious to make sure y'all get those out the door. And you know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
I'd heard that somewhere before.
Yeah, I think so. That is very important to us that since it is general fund dollars that the General Assembly and Transportation Cabinet show the public that we can get those to market and get that done, because that really helped us to take care of some of the over programming that we have in our budget, and like I said, it helps us in those to pay special attention to those high growth areas, which is we have those, and they're very important to us. So thank you all for your work on that.
And thank you for those comments. I'm sorry, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for those comments. And as I mentioned, the entirety of the cabinet's project development process, as well as our industry partners, are working to get those out, because these are it's a great opportunity to be able to implement needed projects, and so we certainly appreciate that opportunity.
Jason, if I may, I know that we've had conversations about some of the things that affect getting those projects out. For those people who are watching, and I know you may not be prepared for this, but could you enlighten us on some of the issues that you all face in simply getting these projects out? Because often people think that, well, if the money's there, you should be able to get this done, and it shouldn't be an issue. And I know that a lot of our public, they don't quite see some of the obstacles, perhaps the way that you all see those obstacles. Could you enlighten us and the public on some of those hindrances that sometimes you run into?
Sure thing. And, not speaking in particular about any project, but just in general, as we look at development and implementation or construction of a road fund or a road plan project, we have phases ranging from planning to design to the acquisition of right-of-way property that needs to be acquired from private citizens or businesses to be able to build the project, the relocation of utilities and affording them somewhere else to be located, public utilities and private utilities, before the construction occurs. And so, each one of those processes are complex, and not on every project. Every project is different, but each one of those can have its own complexities. So if you talk about the design of a project, oftentimes, and we look at different alternatives trying to figure out, based on the conditions we have and the opportunities for growth that we see and the estimates for how many vehicles might use those. There's different ways potentially to solve each problem, and so we look at a range of alternatives trying to figure out the most efficient way to be able to deliver the transportation solutions that are needed by communities and all the folks that need to use our transportation system. Moving from design into that right-of-way process, we're, again, acquiring land for the public use to be able to implement these projects, to build, whether it's new roadway capacity or safety improvements or replace bridges or any of those other types of things. And, the right-of-way acquisition process, anytime that you're going and buying things, that has some complexity to it. And there's the process in place, and, we work with whoever the owner of that property is to make a fair market offer and to look at the to work with those property owners on things that they may need after the project is completed. And sometimes there's legal proceedings that go in with that as well. And so the right-of-way process, does have a lot of unknowns, and that can take additional time than was originally anticipated. The moving of utilities is also a complex process. A lot of these areas, especially where they're growing, utility companies already have a lot of work to do to implement for new services and for new homes or businesses or any of those types of things. And so the working with the highway contracts and everything, that's another thing that needs to be done in order for them to have service that's not interrupted to their customers, but also to be able to implement these road projects, and that takes time and coordination. And ultimately, we work at the Transportation Cabinet with our local communities, with our consultants, with our contractors, with the utility companies, and all of our stakeholders to try and do that as efficiently as possible. But it's complex. These things can take some time. So appreciate the opportunity to explain that.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to explain that. I thought maybe you just put the roads wherever you wanted them to go, and you could just go down and lay down the asphalt. Isn't that kind of how it works? But I do appreciate the time that that our engineers, everyone involved in this process, takes to actually make sure that when we lay down right of way in roads, that it is meant to be something that will last a long time, and something that can be repaired. And I think sometimes I think sometimes there are folks who think, well, we just need to get it done, and what we need to do is make sure we get it done right. Get it done right. Any other questions that anyone on the committee has? No? Well, with that being said, thank you so very much and for coming today, and thank you for the explanation, and mostly thank you for the information about the process that you all have to go through to make this happen. Really appreciate that.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
And we have one more presentation this morning. If you would, yeah, just make sure your green light's on and introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm Eric Pelfrey, our Director of Professional Services with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you very much. And we're moving well, so the floor is yours, and I'm sure, Eric, you're going to really enlighten us this morning.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today in this environment. I do see you routinely with contract review, but appreciate the opportunity to speak to the full committee this morning. Just have a couple of brief slides, but a couple of comments also before those. So I'm going to speak to you today about professional service contracts and personal service contracts. The cabinet, we utilize personal service contracts across the cabinet. By and large, those are for our consultant industry. Those are done to increase capacity across the cabinet to be able to deliver the projects and the programs that we are required to do. Also, professional services, my division explicitly, by and large, the contracts that we utilize are for highway design, for structure design, highway and bridge maintenance inspections, also environmental, traffic, the right-of-way process that Jason spoke about. So we have lots of different uses that we utilize our consultant industry for. Across the cabinet, beyond the engineering services, we also have personal service contracts for various activities. Some of those are in highway safety, maintenance, and right-of-way appraisal services, as well as our KIPDIA process. We have increased those recently because the federal government has also increased their ability for these projects. So to keep up with that demand, we have also increased our ability. We do so with these contracts. We have various types of agreements and services that are available. We've increased both the number of contracts, also the types of services that we now offer consultants to deliver for us. And finally, the cabinet, we are utilizing every tool available to us to deliver the high quality programs, projects for the citizens, the communities, and the Commonwealth as a whole. So I'll briefly just show a few slides targeting the quantity and the dollars associated with these. So you can see in the first slide here, we are trending upwards. The blue line for each of these charts, those are the exact dollars that we have authorized. The red trend line kind of shows the average. So for the blue line here, you can see that a decade ago, we were just below $200 million in authorizations. Again, this is for those engineering types of contracts that we do through just consultant services in my office. So you can see that it's a little bit of a bouncing ball there, but if you look at the trend line, that has been increasing, again, to keep up with the demand of the entire program. This past year, we were about $260 million, I believe. This is total payments. So that first slide was authorizations. This slide is for payments. So you can see that these numbers are not quite as much as the authorizations. There are several reasons for that, but one, again, the process takes a little bit of time. So every dollar that we authorize today will not be spent this year. It takes a little bit of time to get through that process. But again, you can see that trend line is trending upwards. A decade ago, we were just under $120 million. This past year, the past 2 years, we've actually exceeded $150 million in payments. And Senator Douglas, I spoke on Tuesday of last week about those statewide contracts. You may recall that we increased the capacity for one of those. The other one, we did not hit the upset limit and don't expect to. And that's one of the big reasons why we don't always meet the authorization limit with those payments, because we're not utilizing the upset limit of every contract. So that explains a little bit of that $100 million gap there. And then my final slide about capacity is just based on the total number of contracts. So a large amount of our contracts are for time extensions, which means that we're just extending the consultant to allow them to continue work. Those are done without increasing any dollars. We're just allowing that consultant to continue to deliver the project already assigned to them. But also we have new contracts and also contract modifications. So again, you can see that line is trending upwards. A decade ago, we were just over 270. Now we're over 300, 310 or so per year. And I'll be glad to take any questions that committee members may have.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Representative Smith has a question.
Appreciate the discussion on this today. Could you kind of touch on design build and maybe why we're not doing more design build, since does it not eliminate a few of the steps on the time frame? If it does, why we're not utilizing that more? And is that something that we need to be doing on this end? Do we need to be budgeting and saying these roads need to be done through that process? Or can you touch on that and kind of give me an insight on that?
I'll take a shot at that one, and to say that one of the questions you asked was whether or not design build eliminates any of the steps in the process, and in general, no, it does not. I discussed a little bit within my testimony that every project is different, and so some projects may not require all of the steps. Some of the projects that we do may not require the acquisition of right-of-way or the moving of utilities and things like that. But if a project does require those things, design build does not eliminate the necessity to do that. What it can do is allow for some of those steps to take place at the same time, depending on the project and depending on its complexity. And so the cabinet has increased utilization of design build and different types of alternative delivery contracts within the last several years with the authority that's been afforded to us by the General Assembly. And in so doing, are looking continuously at the opportunities with the projects we have in the highway plan to be able to utilize those types of services. Anytime that we look at a project, we're trying to figure out what the most efficient way to not only solve the problem from a design standpoint and all of those types of things, but to actually get the project built and constructed. We recognize at the cabinet that it's very important, obviously, all the thought that goes into the developing of the project and the care that's taken in the right-of-way process and also the movement of utilities. But ultimately, we know that the general public, to your point, Senator Douglas, doesn't get the benefit of that until after the project has been constructed. And so, we work to diligently do that and are excited to have that design build tool to do so, and have been using it more in the last little bit.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Chairman. Should that be separated then? I understand on new construction, on widening, getting into new construction, that you have to have utilities, you have to have right-of-ways. Resurfacing, we're behind on that. So is that an issue on a design build? Does that go through that process? I guess I'm trying to figure out why we're dealing with 22 budget, 20 budget, still in a road plan. And then by the time we go into 26 budget, we're putting more money into those projects that we approved 4 years ago. And maybe we can't ever be caught up. But if my understanding was right on design build, and I'm not an engineer, that the process does move faster, can we not shift more into design build? And is that possible? You're saying we're starting to do more. If you started doing that 6 years ago, would we be further ahead today? Or who makes that decision? Does the secretary make that decision? Or are we supposed to make the decision on design build or straight construction? Because we all understand new construction. We know that it has to be designed, has to be right-of-ways. There is a process there, consulting. I'm learning all that because I keep asking about the delays. But am I wrong in saying that if we shifted more to design build, that we could see more taking place? Is that fair to say? I guess is my question.
All right, you asked several things that I'll try to address as I go here, and if I miss any, please correct me. So. One of the questions you asked about was resurfacing, and the resurfacing process is much different than the regular project development process, and does not go through all of those same steps. Now, when we do rehabilitations on the interstate, and those are a bit more complicated and do have a more robust design element, but the as far as actual resurfacing of projects and things, that's not generally something that is consulted out as far as. We do a lot of those estimates in-house, prepare all of those documents, and the annual budget that we do for resurfacing, that is turned around very, very quickly. And again, as I was discussing earlier, the complexity of different projects. Obviously, if a project doesn't involve right-of-way or utilities, it's able to move quite a bit faster. On the question of who makes that decision, as we have, and as the transportation industry has been utilizing more of this across this country, we have been working to figure out how to best help use that tool to deliver the program that we have here in Kentucky. And, I think that one of the things that we look at as we're looking at that design build portfolio and using design build as a tool, excuse me. Sorry about that. Get choked up talking about delivery. But as we talk about using design build as a tool, just like we would with any tool, we want to pair up the right tool and the right delivery method with the right job. And so the reason we're doing more of that as we continue to learn is because we're honing in on those opportunities and seeing them be successful. And so not only are we looking at that on large projects, but also, maybe projects that don't require right-of-way or utilities, which have a lot of risk on the contractor side from a design build standpoint, or places where we need particular innovation or where there's an opportunity for early contractor involvement. And so we are increasing our use of the tool based on what we are learning, and we are trying to advance our ability to deliver these projects as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
You're welcome. Chairman Bridges has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you guys being here. I'd like to go back to those first two graphs, if you don't mind. On there, we're looking at, I'm looking at the average, and on that first one, the total authorizations are somewhere around 170 or 180, something like that. Now, will you go to the second one? That's that's the payments. Go to the. I think the first one is the authorizations.
Correct.
Yeah, that one. That average is, what would you say, around 180, and then the total payments, I think I got that wrong, was about 120. There's a gap there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then when you go back through all the actuals, there's a considerable gap.
Right.
What happens to that money that's not spent?
So the reason for that gap again is because we don't, if we authorize a project today for $1 million, it's very hard for that consultant to get through all that work with 1 year. It's obviously based on the time that it takes to deliver that entire project. So it may take a couple of years for the consultant to have the capacity to get that work out the door. So that we're never going to hit the authorization amount. One, for that reason. Two, because of our statewide program. So our statewide program, we have probably excess of 80 statewide contracts now, where the consultants, we have a pool of consultants to deliver a type of work. Most of those, we have an upset limit where we do not exceed that amount within a 2-year cycle. Okay. So we try to project forward what we think it's going to be. We don't want to ask the committee for too much in advance. We also don't want to undershoot, but by and large, we're hitting about 60 to 70% of the total utilization on those as well. So if you combine the two, based on the time that it takes for the consultant to deliver, plus the gap between the upset limit and the actual expenses, that accounts for that gap in the difference between authorizations and payments.
Okay, and on average, it looks like around $60 million or something.
Yes.
Or like 2025, I think it's $100 million.
Correct.
difference.
Yeah, based on the year, exactly. That it fluctuates a little bit, but yeah.
Okay. One additional question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Of the total contracts you actually let out, you get back and everything, how many, is there an average of what you think comes to completion? I mean, some of them, I'm sure there's some that get out there and you're saying, this is not going to happen. And have you got an average of what the completion rate is?
Ideally, every project that we advertise, we would love to see get to the point where we're actually putting those construction plans out for the construction contractors to deliver. You're exactly right. Sometimes that doesn't happen because, again, projects take time to get through the project delivery process. In that time, a lot of times our General Assembly members don't have the same priorities. So within that project life cycle, they may have higher priorities that come in. Those the projects that may have been initially advertised during that project development phase, they may sit on the shelf for a little bit. But we can get back to you about the total numbers of that happening, but I don't have that today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Representative Branscombe, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Guys, I want to go back to what Representative Smith was talking about with the design build. I have been a pretty big advocate of that. I come from the construction background, same as Secretary Gray. Not as big company as theirs, but very familiar with the design build process in the construction industry. Wouldn't design build take some of the load off our district engineers if we were to utilize that process?
In what way?
Just with the process of having the contractor involved more in that design process.
It's project dependent.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, project dependent. I mean, and I think that, in a different context, we were having a discussion, and one of the differences between the transportation delivery world and the vertical world is the necessity to purchase right of way, during the project process and those types of things, and perhaps relocate utilities that are not a part of your individual site, and so depending on the project, perhaps, and those are the types of things as we're looking at utilizing design build that we try to identify those projects where it's a good fit, where it will, take the burden off of, some of either the staff involved or it's a delicate balance. And, as from being in the industry, your schedule risk and your is one of those components that makes things challenging in a design build environment. And so given that the ability to acquire right of way. So we have some of these projects that are very large that might have more than 100 different property owners that are affected. That you have to go through that individual right of way process 100 times, and so. Or may have more than 10 or a dozen utilities. And so as we're looking at those things, we are utilizing design build and increasing its utilization in places where it's a good fit from a risk profile and from a schedule profile in order to get these projects advanced.
Okay, follow up, Mr. Chairman. Briefly.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And I don't know how familiar you all are with the 127 project down in Russell County, Clinton County, going over the Cumberland River. That project's been talked about, discussed since I'm 43 years old, and it's been discussed before I was born. But multi-phased project, difficult project, or from the outside, from a contractor, looks like a difficult project, a lot of bridges, things like that. But, I look at, and I'm hearing that our latest phase, knock on wood, could potentially finish on or ahead of schedule. And what I worry about is that it's going to finish on or ahead of schedule, and we're not going to be ready for that next phase, even though we've put money in previous road plans to, I know it's a stair step in how everything works with the right of ways and the design and all that, but, we've been putting money in the budget for it. And my concern is that we're going to be ready for the next phase, and we're not going to be ready to get the bid out. And so I'm trying to stay on top of that. I just want to put that in front of you guys, and anything that we can do to keep this process rolling, I really would appreciate that, whether that's a design build or just keeping things moving. I would appreciate it. And I want to say that my district engineers in District 8 do an exceptional job. And I can't imagine the workload that they have with the number of projects among all of our districts. What our engineers have to do. So I understand that, but I want to make sure we keep that going. So thank you all.
And thank you for those comments, and certainly appreciate that. And thank you for recognizing our staff, because they do a wonderful job.
Senator Higdon also has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric and Jason, thank you all for being here and talking about this. It's these contracts, as we do the budget, we don't see what's appropriated for this. So we always want to make sure that money's being spent wisely. And as we see, the red line is probably a inflation or and then you've gone above that. What are we doing to try to make sure, control the cost and make the road fund dollars are tough. We'll make sure they're all being spent wisely. Do you all put time in to make sure that all those contracts are necessary and control the cost?
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you for the questions, Representative Higdon. Jason, if you want to tag on, but just to clarify, the red line it's more of an average over the 10-year cycle. It's not necessarily a budget. So every project that we authorize has already been budgeted for by the General Assembly. It's in the highway plan already. We've obviously had peaks that go above that in certain years, and others that are not quite as high as that average. But I know Jason, he gets out across our state every couple months. He goes to every district to make sure that those project branch managers that Representative Branscombe just spoke about are staying on target, on schedule with their projects. We go through the same process internally in central office to make sure that we're authorizing the right projects and working with you all to deliver.
Specifically to your question, as we go out and do selection for these contracts, and whether they are individual project contracts or if they're the statewide contracts that we use to accelerate our ability to deliver project development work, we do independent estimates in-house of what those should do and actually negotiate those hours. That's something that Eric's division assists our project managers with to ensure that we're not, overcommitting dollars that are not helpful in the production of whatever it is that we're procuring. And so Eric's division does that. It's audited regularly, and as we go through and do that, our goal is that we want to make sure that there are enough hours to within those contracts to do the work, to do it efficiently, to do it responsibly, but not so many that it results in unnecessary expenditure. So Eric's division does a great job with that.
Couple follow-ups, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead, Senator Higdon.
Are those are they all those contracts? Are they bid? Is there a bidding process for them?
So the federal statute, we have a Federal Brooks Act of 1972 that requires that all architectural and engineering services are procured by qualifications rather than low bid. So there is, within each consultant response, we don't ask for and they're not permitted to talk about their wage rates. Similar to if you're going to a doctor, you probably wouldn't want to go to the cheapest doctor. We would hope that you're going to go to the most qualified doctor that's going to, again, take that whole contract life cycle, the whole project life cycle, and make that cost a little bit better. So the design process, on average, is about 10% of a project. If we did even have the ability to advertise and then pick the cheapest consultant, it's 10% of the overall project. That consultant, if they're cheaper, they're probably not going to be the best, and you're going to probably overspend on the construction because that design consultant is going to miss out on a lot of things that may result in change orders and blow the entire budget.
I'd have much more satisfaction if they were bid. I just think that's a good process. And even though the federal statute says you don't have to bid it, we can always make ours more stringent and add to that. So I guess that's part of my question is how do we make sure that we're getting our biggest bang for the buck? And I understand what you're talking about on who does them, but one of the I guess the next question it leads me to, and Senator Douglas, he's chairman of the contract review, brought to my attention, and he showed me in one last month there was about 4 pages of contracts for transportation that were extended.
Right.
And that, and I wondered if that was, they were doing the extension to prevent to having to bid on them again, but, apparently that's not. I would like to know more about that process, and I'd like for, if you would, to send us a list of the or the contracts that you have and the amounts, and Chairman Upchurch and I do the budget, and it's just nice to know what we're putting, what those line items are in the budget.
Right.
So thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Senator Higdon. I think it would be wonderful for Chairman Upchurch as well as Senator Higdon, and I even volunteer myself, Eric, to sit down with you at some point and ask you to come to one of our offices. We read pretty well, but we like it when you say it verbally, because I think we'll come up with a few more questions than what we'll get simply by reading. And since I'm going to finish within the hour, there's a couple of things I want to say, unless anybody on the committee have any other questions. Okay, just a couple of things I wanted to say, and that is I also wanted to reiterate what Senator Higdon had talked about the most recent extensions. I had some concerns because there were several at the last government contract committee meeting. But the other thing I wanted to touch base on was I don't have a problem with you not meeting the authorization limits at all. If we can get a contract completed in a timely fashion and with the safety that we should have built in, I'd love to see you go 50% under the authorization. That way we can actually affect more projects. So I think that kind of should be the goal, that we're trying to be as efficient as we can in this space, but also make sure that we have safety in mind and longevity in mind. With that being said, I want to thank you all for coming in and putting up with us this morning. I hope it wasn't too painful. The next, what's our next? She didn't put it on here. Just one second. Yeah, okay. We're not sure when our next committee meeting. You gentlemen are free to go. Free to go. I appreciate it. We don't know when our next meeting is I'm being told gonna be yet, but September 17th. The next meeting of the Budget Review Subcommittee for Transportation will be September 17th. Do I hear a motion? I hear. Do I have a second? No. Okay. The meeting is this meeting is adjourned. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, we got everything done. Thank you very much, Chairman. Jeremy, let me turn this on.
I know I've seen out.